MSNBC staffers in a meltdown, panic mode, because Comcast is going to make their cable network go bye-bye. Should have happened a long time ago. Hardly anybody watches the show. And they might even change the name, all right, MSNBC. Why do they need to do this? Because they've tainted the name NBC. Everyone just thinks it's MSNBC. It's one just big, gigantic, liberal cesspool. So exclusive details being reported here by Alexandra telling us panic engulfed MSNBC headquarters on Wednesday. After parent company Comcast confirmed a massive spin-off of its cable properties. Top executive even suggesting the left-leaning network may be forced to change its name to what? We're communists? The stars Rachel Maddow, Chris Jansing, and Katie Tur joined a tense 10 a.m. meeting at 30 Rock in Midtown. It was led by NBC Universal chairman. His name is Mark Lazarus. Oh, Lazarus. Often referenced in the Bible or in biblical terms as the man resurrected from the dead. And so we think about someone who is dead. Who will lead the new company? Sources told the Post. Staffers fearing looming layoffs peppered him with questions about whether the network will need to change its name, its logos, its headquarters, after reports surfaced that the new entity could be cut off from the reporting of the muscle of NBC News. They're going away. Lazarus told MSNBC staffers he wasn't sure whether the network would have to change its identity or its home. Everyone's in a panic because everything is up in the air, one MSNBC person told the Post. Another insider close to the network said, quote, people don't really know what's going on. They had an election. Holidays are coming up. People are tired and they're just trying to get through. C declined to comment. Maybe he got fired already, the commenter person. Comcast announced on Wednesday that MSNBC, home to anchors like Joy Reid and Lawrence O'Donnell, will join CNBC, Oxygen, E, Sci-Fi, and the Golf Channel as part of a new company called Spinco. Whoa. So they moved it from NBC to Spinco? That's a perfect name for it. That's great. That's all they do. That's a great Rachel Maddow. Spinco. What do? We spin things. All right. We know. Meanwhile, NBC News, NBC Sports, Telemundo, streaming service Peacock, and Bravo will all remain under NBC. So they're like, you're not welcome here. They're getting deported from the network. Joe Scarborough, co-host of Morning Joe, expressed his own anxieties. Oh no. During the program before the meeting, joking nervously on air, says we could all be fired a year from now. Oh, here he was. All right, so I think I had a clip of Joe. Where did I have Joe? All right, maybe they have it for us. Joe Brzezinski's upset. When this happens, you never know what's going to happen, he said of the news. To which co-host Mika Brzezinski added, it could be tomorrow too. He could be fired tomorrow. Oh no. Very upset about it. Let's see. That was a clip of them covering Trump's second term. They're dunking on Hegseth. Maybe if they were honest, they wouldn't have to be worried about being fired. The spinoff of the cable properties, which are suffering dwindling viewership, is expected to take about a year. The prospect of being separated from NBC News, despite fears among journalists that the company is going down. Much of the daytime schedule is filled with NBC News affiliated correspondents. So what's going to happen to them? They said employees at the meeting inquired, like, Lazarus, if a unit for verifying the news would have to be built from scratch, are we going to have to build this up or are we going to use your resources? Lazarus said, I don't know. But he likened Spinco to a well-funded startup. A source said despite the lack of details, the presence was welcomed. Maddow said, it's great to have you here on day one. Maddow. She's sucking up already. Oh, come on, Maddow. Lighten up, all right? She's like, Mark, we're really grateful for your leadership here. Don't fire me. All right. Tur echoed the sentiment, said it sounded like the sound of a well-funded startup. Oh, they're doomed. MSNBC President Rashida Jones thanked Lazarus for addressing the staff before telling them change is always complicated. I don't think anyone knows anything, said a source. I think they have a year to figure it out. MSNBC has seen its ratings tank since Trump walloped Kamala. The rabid anti-Trump network averaged roughly 550,000 viewers since Election Day, 39% drop compared to others. Audience fell 53. People are anxious, but I'm not sure they're more anxiety ridden than they were 5 minutes before the announcement. The business is not doing well. Like other cable networks, MSNBC is facing a major business challenge, like cord cutting. People are coming online. MSNBC is projected to shed 10.5% of its subscribers, and they could be left with an average of 61 million viewers compared to 68 the year before. Rough. Now, the rival companies are doing much better, and I wanted to share a couple clips on the fallout of this because Mark Halperin was cracking jokes on him. He's been over here in the media forever, right? Mark Halperin, a journalist reporter in the political space for a long time. He was out dunking on the Brzezinskis.
Comcast is moving forward with a spin-off of its NBC Universal cable channels, including MSNBC. Con, what do you think of that?
If I were Joe and Mika, I'd be on LinkedIn right now, updating that resume. Comcast is doing smart business. The viewership is gone. Look, there's a reason that platforms like this are flourishing. The trust in the media is gone because they're not doing their job. And here's the thing, as someone who's been doing this for 30 years, they don't even try. They literally, most of these guys, when I dealt with Mark, the relationship I had is that he'd call and say, all right, give me your thing. And he'd question you and he'd go back and forth and tell me about this. And
I was dogging.
I know, but the lack of interest from most of these people to understand the very basics about how politics works. They call, hey, can I get a quote on X? Don't you want to know the background? No, I need to file a quick story. There is a lack of interest in understanding that exists within the press corps. It's horrible. And for all these people who like to talk about democracy dying in darkness and all this stuff, they don't do much for the industry. And I think this is exactly why. And I hope the best for Mika and Joe. I look forward to them driving my Uber. Yeah. All the best to them and everyone else in MSNBC.
Good luck, guys. Yeah. And they went down to Mar-a-Lago. Maybe they want to be Trump's driver. They're like, hey, man, you need anything? Like, you need any help around here? Because we're going to be free anytime soon now. Sean Spicer is having fun with it. Sean Spicer's been the victim of the insane media, right? He was Trump's press secretary for a while, and they were constantly on him, just obliterating him every day. Trump every day, because they're just essentially cheerleaders. Well, no offense, it's not offensive to cheerleaders at all, but they're cheerleaders, and they have a role to play in this scheme. The political journalists are not supposed to be political cheerleaders for their team. It's a different role. So it's not good for them to be doing that. And they've spent the last decades doing that and then condescending at everybody who challenges them as though they are the enlightened stewards of information and everybody else is a moron. They're snobs and they're getting called out over it. You can see the numbers are bad. Glenn Greenwald talked about this. Glenn Greenwald has popped up, right? He used to be more plugged into this space. Now he's on Rumble. Now he's got his own show. He's crushing. Glenn Greenwald said, there are lots of articles on how MSNBC's audience has completely collapsed and disappeared. Once Kamala lost, they got disillusioned because they got lied to. They were like, she's going to win Iowa. She's going to win. Like, yeah, she's going to win. Wow, this is great. Texting their friends. But the full extent is shocking, okay? Their primetime shows can't even get 75,000 people watching in the key demo, 18 to 54. Weekend shows don't even get 30K. See, the numbers are bad. Like Sharpton, it's getting 33K. Is that what that's saying? Melbourne's getting 26,000 viewers. Iman, Rule, Stephanie, 23. Cape Hearts, 27. MSNBC reports on 4 p.m., 13,000 viewers. Gosh, it's brutal. But I think that it's not about, for a long time, I don't think this was about a business model per se. The numbers have always been pretty marginal. But they're subsidized by the pharmaceutical companies and by the deep state that prefers to have them constantly brainwashing everybody around them. So here's that awkward clip with Joe. We could be fired tomorrow. Morning Joe awkwardly jokes about this, Comcast spinning off the network.
All right, time now for a look at some of the other stories making headlines this morning. Comcast, which owns our parent company, NBC Universal, plans to spin off its cable TV networks. That's according to the Wall Street Journal and people familiar with the situation. The company will separate off entertainment and news channels, including MSNBC, CNBC, USA, Oxygen, E, Sci-Fi, and the Golf Channel.
So it's spinning off.
The new cable venture will reportedly have an ownership structure that mirrors Comcast's. Comcast's spokesperson declined to comment.
So Willie, as you look at the screen right there, the big concern that stockholders right now on Wall Street are wondering about before they decide what to do with Comcast shares is whether Mika is going to have to give up her penthouse perch atop the Comcast
First
building.
thought I had,
Since
too.
I
What
never had
happens
it.
to the When are we going to get invited to the penthouse?
Never. They never let us up. I will say really quickly on this, Drudge at the top said, like news meltdown, all this other stuff. I could be completely wrong. We could all be fired a year from now or whenever this happens. You never know what's going to happen.
Or tomorrow.
But in this case, though, Willie, what they're doing is what other media firms are doing. You spin off the cable channels, which 7 years ago were making a ton of money. Now they've got to figure out how to make them profitable. Disney, which by the way, huge media news, Disney has figured out now how to make streaming profitable. Peacock had an extraordinary success in the Olympics. So they're talking about spinning this off.
How are Disney's numbers doing? Are they good? I know that they were in some hot water there for a while, and I think Disney is probably going to want to do the same thing, right? We're talking about ABC and The View coming up next because Bill O'Reilly was talking about this. He's obviously been in the space for a long time. But The View, they're probably going to want to depoliticize all this stuff. They're realizing that Americans are just not into it anymore.
Comcast still owns, I think Brian Roberts still owns a third of that. And because Comcast didn't jump into the bidding war like everybody else, throwing stupid money at streaming services and then watch it flop, Comcast has a ton of cash. So now they spin this off and they're in a position to, what do you all say? To get a lot of different consolidate, but also to just ramp up. And so you get a lot of people, a lot of different channels together. And so whatever that entity is going to be, there'll probably be a lot of cable channels and they'll be in a much better position to scale.
Oh, man, this is some of the worst cope you've ever heard. Isn't it bad? We're going to be stronger together. They're going to spin us off. Remember they've done this a few times, like they've tried Air America and some of those other ones. And they bring them together and they just flounder and fail. So, yeah.
Scale it. I took one business class at University of Alabama.
We're all staring at you.
I didn't get up.
I'm glad you gave us your analysis.
The only thing that makes sense here is you spin it off and then you scale it up. And then you figure out how to make it more profitable.
Yeah, this is to keep.
All right, good luck, fellas. Now, by the way, I don't revere or, what's the R word? Relish in the fact of other people doing badly. I'd like to see competent opposition to the Republicans, just like we'd like to see competent Republicans. Like, we want to live in a competent country. So we'd rather all of our political people play at a higher level, all of them, because iron sharpens iron and you get better. And I'd like the Democrats to be more free speech than the conservatives or something. Like, wow, they're challenging us. They're even harder free speech. I didn't think that was possible. But that's not what the reality is. That both parties are mirror images of each other and they shake hands all the time. One team ransacks the Treasury for 4 years, passes it off to the other for 8, then they get it back for 8, and then they get it for 4. And it's just this round and around we go. But what has been happening here, they've been in it together, right? They've all been part of where the government can be terrible, the media can be terrible, but they supported each other because the government would reference the media and the media would reference the government and they'd give each other interviews all the time. But that whole infrastructure, that whole umbrella is collapsing out there. Like, yeah, we're going to go have more exposure. You guys can't even make it on cable news is the point. You're being pumped into people's homes. You're like you're like one of 5 default channels. You imagine how much exposure you could potentially have if my channel, our channel here, got on 1 out of every 5 YouTube subscribers political panel. Crazy. And they can't even capture that. There's like, where are you going to go? A couple like NBC, ABC, MSNBC, Fox News, maybe have the Bloomberg channels or some of those other ones. Fox Business, CNBC. They have it all handed to them on a silver platter, and they still can't get anybody to watch their shows. It's, gosh, everybody else has to go claw and fight for it. Megyn Kelly and others have been able to be successful. Tucker's been able to be successful, but a lot of others have not. Take a look at Don Lemon. He's still trying to figure it out. All right, now we've got more. This is Bill O'Reilly, speaking of Bill O'Reilly, and he's had a difficult time, I would say, transitioning from the old cable world into the digital world. And the audience in his presentations have not translated as well, but he's also catching his stride. So he was here talking about this and talking on the Scarborough situation, saying this is going to go pretty badly for them.
Comcast said, you two, we're going to have to try to mend some cliche fences, and you two are going to go in there and you're going to try to tamp it down. Because Comcast knew the next day they were going to announce that MSNBC is vapor. That is a huge meteor story.
Why is
Enormous.
it vapor? Just because they're spinning it off and putting them in the... Well, they're spinning off a bunch of brands.
There's no spin-off.
Is this a spin-off company?
There's no spin-off. See, you buy the propaganda, Cuomo.
Oh, okay.
See what I mean about
I'm just saying
people?
what's being reported.
All right.
But what do you know?
Yeah, I know, but why would you believe what's being reported? You want the real story? Here
Yes.
it comes.
All right, Bill, give it to us.
They're uncoupling their word, Comcast, MSNBC from NBC News. That means MSNBC has no resources at all. None. They're not going to be able to pay these people millions of dollars, Rachel Maddow, whatever she's making. NBC News is saying, we don't want you around. Why? Because NBC News' numbers, Lester Holt and the Today Show, are catastrophe, because half the country equates NBC News with MSNBC, and they won't watch. So NBC is desperately trying to save the mothership of information, and they have to throw MSNBC overboard. They're not putting any.
Maddow is getting $30 million a year. She does one show a week. Reportedly earns a annual salary, $30 million, sourced from The Wrap. The figure stems from a contract she signed August 21, which extends through the 2024 election. So it's like it's coming up. Under this agreement, Maddow transitioned from hosting a nightly show to a weekly program airing 30 times a year. 30 times a year, annually $30 million. She's getting $1 million a show? What? However, the media industry, they're hemorrhaging money for that. What is that worth? The media industry is currently experiencing significant cost-cutting measures, particularly affecting high-paid talent. Reports suggest that Maddow may face a decrease in her compensation in future contracts. But now it's $30 million. Wow. Crazy.
Anything into MSNBC. They want to sell it. So where's Georgie Soros now? Georgie's buying radio stations. You can get MSNBC for nothing. They'll give it to you. They don't want any more of this. Why? Because it's hateful. Not because it's so far left. The whole NBC Comcast hierarchy is far left. But it's hateful. They hate Trump. They hate people who vote for Trump. Everybody knows that. And you know what's next? The View. ABC News is going to have to cut ties with The View. And you saw that today or yesterday when Sonny Hostin had to read a legal statement in the middle of a segment. The lawyers got Whoopi Goldberg's ear, and it said, we're bringing a statement in on a teleprompter. She reads it. So it is over for these far left networks. Done, never coming back. Dracula's stake in the heart. Who benefits? News Nation may, but CNN, which is on the ropes too, will probably get some MSNBC viewers.
Wow.
There you go.
What do you think of that?
I'm certainly not going to accuse them of not making sense.
Comcast said you.
All right. So that's Bill O'Reilly. And it makes sense. Now, I think that the hate analysis, yeah, that's true. We do feel it. It is palpable when these people speak about Trump and about anybody who supports Trump. You can see it. Their face contorts. twitchy, tishy Letitia. Remember her? Oh, facial spasms every time. Oh, illegitimate president. Okay, relax, Tish. Take something for that. But it's more than that. I'm okay with people being hateful and aggressive and just being hardcore brawlers. But they have to be fair players. They can't kick you in inappropriate locations and then call themselves fair sports. They can't censor you, try to kick you off the ballot, then try to raid your home and then raid your opponents and imprison Bannon and Navarro and J6ers. And all this. Those people are cheaters. They're dishonest. And the people who are defending them and endorsing them and making stuff up are co-conspirators in their nefariousness. And so it's about dishonesty. They manipulate their propagandists, and people are recognizing it. You can only be told there's no inflation a million times before you realize, yes, there is. Oh, there's no problem with immigration. The border's fine. Don't be racist. You go downtown, you look around, you go, not even downtown, go to your local area. Every city has them now. And you'll see, yeah, they hate us. That's true. But they're also cheaters, and they're liars, and they're dishonest, and they're partisan hacks who, in my opinion, don't love America at all. They love power, and they're working hard to maintain it. A fun story to hear that they're unhappy about it. Comcast spinning it off.